Item number 16, written and verbal reports. We'll start with Councillor Daneka.
Only thing was the gun show. Did a couple hours there. We had a survey in regards to the budget in terms of the services offered by the town and how the citizens deemed them valuable, no value, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think we have the results of the surveys that were done tabulated yet, but it was good interaction with a lot of the people that came by. Always fun to do. And that's it. I move my verbal report for information.
All those in favor? Carried. Councillor Gilroy?
Verbal report. I'm just going to highlight only one of the places that I was at, and that is the High Prairie and Area Chamber of Commerce. You heard there was a very interesting discussion on the security of the town, and that's why that information was brought up when Officer Bloom was here. The High Prairie and Area Chamber will be sending a letter to the Town Council and our administration. That is because a lot of the membership has been asking what our current strategic plan details, because they'd like to be involved in helping with the town's strategic plan committee. As well, they're also going to be, you'll see posters up around town about a welcome, sort of a welcome wagon. I can't really use welcome wagon because that's a specific label, but welcome baskets and stuff like that, that they are going to be trying to not only get people to be part of, but also they're looking at putting one of those in each of the surrounding areas as well that we trade with, First Nation people as well, to try and make sure there's lots of business that continues to come through this town. And they also have two online surveys that are at the Chamber's website as well, that people can go on to. And I forgot to bring that particular website, but it is the High Prairie and Area Chamber of Commerce. And they're also working already on the gala, organizing it, and they're hoping, and I was just telling Debbie about this, but they're hoping, they're crossing their fingers to try and get, what was his name again? Doug Griffiths, yes. So they're going to be working, try and get him scheduled as soon as possible. So that's a couple of things. They had an interesting idea, which I'm not sure is going to fly, and I have to admit that. I'm not always their cheerleader. But I do have to report it, being on that committee. And one of the ideas for coming up with drawing more businesses is they were thinking of a certain incentive. It'll be in the letter for businesses that would employ 20 or more people coming in. And that was sort of tax incentives and that for those. But you can see it when they have sent an official letter as opposed to an email that I received that I was reading on their behalf. So other than that, I wish I was at the gun show, but I was traveling, and so I missed that. And so I move my verbal report for information.
Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Councillor Long?
Don't have a verbal report, but I do have a big thank you to everybody here in council and to the community. My health hasn't been great. It's not getting any better really, but I just fight it and keep on smiling and do the best I can, but unfortunately I'm missing time. So it's things that I brought up during the election that it might happen, and it is happening, and I'm doing the best I can though. So anyways, thank you very much. That's my verbal report
Okay. All those in favor?
Or not in favor.
They're not-
My report is, you have the written copy there on your desk. Basically attended the Recreation Committee meeting on the 12th. There were, at that meeting, there was identified a few financial issues. I think that, for example, one of the issues was the auditor was not able to do the 2018 audit on recreation. It appears that information was not recorded for them sort of at the transition. And then, so the recommendation was our administration to look into and rectify that situation. There was a deficit that they found of about $180,000, which was way off, and that was the look that we had at the council meeting. What? So we didn't know why. So we've asked administration to look into it, and I know Brian mentioned today that they found out why that was. Did you want to tell them now? Okay. Today, Brian was indicating that our portion of the allotment to the Recreation Board was not included in there, so it was missing our share. And once that share goes in, where are we at?
It was a quarterly
The quarterly input?
payment, yeah.
Yeah.
Courtney.
It's not quite accurate. It's not missing. It's the fact that our financial statements are not the same as the Recreation Society statements. The format we have, the money comes in from the county and it goes into the revenues. That amount is supposed to equal the amount that's the deficit because we're paying half. So it's supposed to show as a deficit. It always will show as a deficit for our portion. That's how our financial statements work. If somebody from Recreation had come and asked me before this went to the board, it would have been appreciated. I could have explained it at the time, and it wouldn't have caused such a kerfuffle because somebody didn't even ask me.
Okay. Just other things that they're doing. They're busy with getting the slow pitch league started this spring, and the other thing was what's that? I thought they were taking all the registrations and stuff for that.
You should have said ball hockey.
Yeah, well, I just don't think I don't think they're organizing a league, but you are right. They will take the registrations for independent teams, just like rec hockey.
Yeah,
But
and
it's
then
not
they
a
do
specific
the
league.
schedule up and stuff too, right? Yeah, so that's I guess what you call it. But I think, yeah, they're taking registrations and they're doing a schedule, so whatever you want to call that. But they're working on getting that started. Ice usage, they reported, was down a little bit this winter, due 198 hours, yeah. And that was due to a variety of factors, such as we didn't host provincials this year and other tournaments, plus a shorter season for some of our minor hockey teams and the Regals, so they didn't. That was part of it. The gun show worked the booth. We talked about that already. The one thing that didn't mention while we were there, we had a visitor tell us about their poor experience at the Key Inn. So anyways, there's nothing we do about that, but they came over just to tell us that they were not happy with staying there. And last, we had the Heart River Housing meeting. The auditor gave their presentation. Everything in their audit was good. The auditors did find a couple of minor issues on data not being properly entered for their clients, but everything else was good. And then they're busy working on and coming up with a contract for the selling of those 5 Heart River Housing homes and what that lease-to-own contract would look like. And that took a long time to weed through that and what we wanted in there. That was quite a while. So with that, I move my report for information, unless there's any questions. Councillor Stenhouse.
So can you just clarify the auditor for the 2018 audit? So will that audit actually take place?
The audit will take place, yes. And it's just the town has allocated some manpower to resolving the issues so that the auditors can do the audit and clean it up. Yeah.
And the deficit is not a true deficit?
No.
Okay.
Okay, any other, Councillor Gilroy?
I'm glad to hear that the 5 properties will be you've got permission that supersedes any governmental change, and hopefully we'll get more, because it's nice to see more of our social housing turned into giving them the leg up so they can have their own house. I'm not against social housing, but I like it as a stepping stone to owning your own property and then becoming the taxpayer to stretch it out a little bit. And you said that, I believe you said that's going to be around June or so. I know there are people interested in how that's going to work. I did want to ask you, I know I may take a little flack for this, but what was your reasoning for putting about the one particular, the key in?
Well,
I mean, if they came up and told you that they had lousy service at A&W or Miros or somebody else, would you also put that in there? Because I'm not sure we should really be naming businesses in town at town council. That's, I think it's singling out people, and so it's just, I think it should be a private thing.
Yeah, you're probably right. It was just one of the highlights at the gun show event, and that's why I brought it, because there was quite a, they had pictures and stuff of why they weren't happy, and it was just, that's why I brought it up.
But we can't regulate businesses.
We don't regulate the
so
businesses.
So they should be going to the owner then instead of
and they did. Not to their satisfaction, but they did. So. Okay, any other ones? Seeing none, I moved my report for information. All those in favor? Carried. Councillor Cordley?
No report because I was not able to make the meeting, and thank you for attending for me, Brian. And also I missed the gun show because I was working. Thank you, Brian, for attending for me. And it's been busy for me, so I've missed those 2 things. So no report.
Well, you can thank me for something too. You Brian.
2 out of 3 in that.
Yeah.
Life of Brian is on.
Yes.
Hey!
Why don't you just go eat meatloaf? Okay.
Councillor Rose?
So you have a copy of my report, and other than that, I forgot to mention that I was at the gun show as well, covering a few of the shifts there, and
Debbie.
I didn't document that, but most of my report is similar to Mayor Panasic's, because it's all about the recreation meeting, so we probably duplicated a lot of the same information. And if nobody has any questions, I move my report for information.
Councillor Stenhouse?
Again, it's with the 180,000 deficit. In your 3rd paragraph there, you say the rec board audit was not completed as the books since October have outstanding items and need to be updated. When you say outstanding items, is that outstanding bills, or what is that?
Outstanding entries that haven't been made. So basically there's been a change in who's doing the bookkeeping since October, right? Since the transfer of ownership. And the town of High Prairie has their own finance department, with their own people in place that will make the entries, different than how it was being done for recreation, right? So actually even the employee who was working for recreation, who was their financial employee, is now part of the town staff and doing another job. They're not doing entries anymore. So there's been some changes that need to be worked out as to who's doing what, and some catch up. And that's what the auditor discovered, was that there's some missing entries, and the whole transaction, it sounded like we saw the auditor's report, that the transaction of the purchase wasn't documented yet. So it sounds like that has been somewhat rectified, or at least that the town staff has been, they've been given permission to put some time into making sure that this bookkeeping is up to date.
But
I think, sorry.
it's not unpaid bills or anything
It's not
like that.
unpaid bills. It's just bookkeeping entries, but because the entries weren't there when the auditor looked at the books, he said this is all out of whack.
Not complete.
Right. And it's just some challenges too, because Recreation used to have full control over making their entries and seeing their financial statements on a regular basis. The town has sort of a different system. Actually, it just was brought to our attention that the town system is only the treasurer has access to the financial information. Like, we can't even ask the CAO to provide us an update on what's going on this, financial situation, say this particular one, that he doesn't have the same access as the treasurer is. And so what's happening is Recreation themselves, who used to have access to be able to make the entries and pull off their own reports, they don't have access anymore. So it's just a change in process that has given us a little bit of a stumbling block.
Councillor Gilroy?
It's my understanding that the Recreation Department, the committee that was there before, the 4 people, the 2 county, 2 town, they had actually changed their status to advisory and to fundraising and things like that. At what point will we see that complete, where we're not reading about human resources things such as vacation accrual and different things that I didn't think were part of the original agreement when the town and the rec department or rec board got together? When will we see it where, because I'm getting confused as to what exactly is now the norm for the board, the Joint Recreation Committee. What is responsibilities, and how does that differ from previous, before we put everything together? If you could just explain to me, I would appreciate that, because I'm very confused when I see reports that have human resources information in here, 38,000 paid out of vacation accrual and stuff like that. If you could just explain to me what's changed.
As you're finished asking the long question,
Sure.
I will explain it to you. 38,000 accrual is based on transfer agreements. I'm
Okay. So
I'd let you speak, and I'd appreciate the same respect. So all that's in my report and all that you mentioned is about previous accruals of vacation pay, of benefits, of payouts, that all based on the sale, all based on the transfer. The board is responsible for this last audit. They're responsible for the bookkeeping to be done up until a certain date, and we're waiting to get that process completed. So we are waiting for Recreation and the town to finish the bookkeeping so we can put that all to bed.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Councillor Rose? Seeing none. Oh, did you move your report?
I already tried that once.
Yeah.
Move
Okay.
it again.
All those in favor? Carried. Councillor Stenhouse.
Oh, sorry, there's one more thing.
Oh.
Too late.
Too late.
You have to bring it back to the next meeting.
Just if anybody is interested in this, is a webinar. And it says that it's on April the 3rd, and it is on Community Main Street. It's a Doug Griffiths online free webinar if anybody's interested in taking it. Sorry.
All right, I'm up.
You're up.
I have nothing to report.
I know. I don't know if I can report it. Sure you did. You put you into it. Did it? What? You don't have to report what you did. You
No.
just say, what? Oh,
So I just attended a subdivision appeal.
As chair.
as
chair.
Had a girl.
Yeah.
Good job. Was that one of the town subdivision, or is it part of the
No.
joint committee,
Joint
so you were on another, okay, the county issue?
I dropped the mic.
Good. Okay,
It was our first, and it was a learning process.
First and last?
Yeah, well, somebody told me, oh, I've been on that board for 4 years, and you never called me.
You're special.
okay,
I
any
moved my
reports
report for information.
Any report, any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Now we have one other agenda item. Do we have a motion to, now we've learned something brand new from Terry. She was on a course, and when we motion to go into camera, it can't just be, it has to be more specific now, so she has to give us more direction.
I get this.
Oh, you got that, okay, what were,
Share that with council.
okay, this is, yeah, she was,
Reasons to go in.
we have the reasons to go in, and then it has to be identified by a section number as we move forward.
Ooh. Wow. That's okay.
Well, we all, and we do, don't we? It says personnel.
We
Isn't that-
identify what it is, we just don't put a number beside it.
You have to.
Okay, well, I'm gonna also just glue this there.
So, section 13, disclosure harmful to personal privacy.
We have 17 and 27.
Which one?
Sorry?
17 and 27.
Privileged information and 17 is disclosable personal privacy.
There we go. So you
17
can
and
say
27.
two things, or do you just say
Yes.
one?
So
No, you
we
say
don't-
two.
To say that not that number as many as you can.
So we only
Oh,
say the
okay.
numbers, and we don't have to say what it is anymore? So
You-
then, if
so you're-
on here, we would just put the section numbers?
Your motion would more so read that council move in camera to discuss personnel matters as per section 17 and 27 of the Freedom of Information and Protection Act.
There we go. Nancy made a beautiful motion.
I'll make a motion. It sounded too good.
Yeah. Okay, and we'll have a vote and we'll go into camera. All those in favor? Carried. So we'll be going into camera. We'll take a slight break while we move into camera.